important thing is one key question will be in this format. So we will be having case description in the paper also. It will be very similar to what you got, and I understand that. I mean, the case was in that format because the real world cases are also like that. You don't get black and white, like very one-dimensional situations in practice. Basically, it's a mix of a lot of things. So the first idea is that you clearly identify what is the specific intelligence objective that would be the highest priority in that particular case. Right? If you get that wrong, you generally will get all the remaining ones wrong also. So I had to look at the submissions. I am yet to upload the feedback for each submission. I have the feedback in the LMS, but I think around 5 or 6 only got the proper, like my expected intelligence objective. Now I discussed this last week also. Basically, if you look at the intelligence objective, it's a trade-off problem. So you can make the intelligence objective extremely broad versus you can make it extremely specific also. Both are problematic. So it comes with experience on which starting point and which intelligence objective that you would select for this kind of thing. So we'll first discuss this. We'll talk about tooling today, but I want to discuss this a little bit in detail, and because if for most investigations, this is kind of a make or break deal. If you get it wrong, the follow also gets wrong. Okay, so now if you look at the case, what did you see as paths? Now, for this particular case, you can drive an investigation in multiple paths. It's not just one path that you can go with. So, what were the paths that you selected? So, your answers, let me know. The specific answers that you gave.
Objective.
Yeah, objective.
Identify alpha-touch publicly available data and sources which can cause fundamental data leakage on the company.
Okay. Any other answers?
How does project solution ensure the privacy of their customer and clients for Alpha Cloud platform?
Okay. So now let's do parts here. This is privacy aspect of the customer base and their platforms. This is one part. Any other answers? I think there are other answers. Have a look at your sheet and let me know. Exactly. What the competitors are doing in terms of data extraction? Yes, 3. Any other ones? There are, I think. I can't remember who. Security gaps. Yes, that's loopholes with security, correct? Infrastructure and architecture, same problem, different way. Okay.
Data leakages. What are the data leakages?
Okay, data leakage, right. So now, if you look at all of these things, now I want you to think of this in layers. So we can have this as the starting point, we can have that as the starting point, we can have that as the starting point, right? So for each of these questions, if you select all of three, now let's take these 3 examples. So this is finding the vulnerabilities of their security related issues, and that is architecture, that's one layer down also. Okay? Each of these investigations, if you do it, you will arrive at some information that relates to the intelligence objective, and your findings will reflect that. So I have broken down these things. Now this is the first part. identify competitor expenditure activity. This is exactly what he said. So this is basically determining what the rival vendors are actively mining. Yes. So it's his answer, right? That's one part. Number two. So this is okay. No one had this answer, but this is also another part. Part is what? So this is I had another point on something called Alpha Cloud. Another previous employee starting another blog kind of thing with the prototype solution. So this is another one. So those are related to what? Historical leaks, right? People who were there in the organization sometime back, and they were looking at hosting sensitive details related to that case. Number three. This is purely a human aspects problem, right? People who were working with them or third party solution providers or previous employees exposing data related to their work or internal information. That's purely a human aspects problem. Other one. This is the external footprint map. Nobody had given this as specific answers, but another part for this is what is our public footprint, right? And number 5, this is inadvertent risk exposure. So out of these 5, this is number 5. This is also number 5, but different layers, and this is number 1. I think there was another answer, I can't exactly remember. Now the thing is, this is the trade-off thing that I mentioned. So you can of course have these also as good intelligence questions, that's not a problem. But this is the same objective. So you're basically, when you're with security exposures, you're looking at what are the, so this is entry points, right? And that is architectural weaknesses like configuration issues and things of that nature. Would they anyway be captured under this? If you are trying to achieve this objective, would these two objectives be anyway captured within this objective?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, right? More or less, yes. Now, had the case been, now if the case here, now these are not wrong ones, I'm arriving at why a balancing point. These would be very good intelligence objectives if the intelligence project was driven by the technical team to pinpoint certain technical measures with the purpose of patching that very specific leaking point or misconfigured infrastructure. If we had this as the answer, the answer for the project would be this server has this misconfiguration, or this server has this unpatched entry point, right? But if you get this answer, like this broad answer, there's multiple paths that we can take inside this, right? Even one of the, if you take this, even the objectives that we discussed in the previous 1, 2, 3, 4, some of them are in here. So now the other thing is, so this is, I think, if I'm doing this, I would go along with this kind of objective. And why is that a key thing? Because several secondary objectives, the footprint, anyway you have to do. Artifacts, anyway you have to look at those artifacts, the ones they mentioned, to arrive at the answer for the overall objective, the one that we just discussed. And the other thing is, we discussed risk and impact, right? If you take all of these 5 objectives and if you categorize them in terms of risk, so what is risk here? We discussed this, right? Risk is a output of which 2 elements? Yes, I think we did. I can't remember. Because so many software security classes, I can't remember which. Risk, okay. Generally, risk is depending on which two variables? Impact and yes, impact and yes, likelihood, right?
Likelihood.
So impact and likelihood. Okay, so now why do we do this? Why do we have these? Now we are trying to look at the risk factor, and for that we try to look at one of the two variables, impact and likelihood. Why do we do that? We do that because risk is not a quantifiable attribute. Can you quantify risk? 50 points, 50 risk, 0.5 risk. You can't, right? This is a very qualitative attribute. So the way that the industry looks at risk is in terms of impact. What is the impact? Can we quantify impact? In most cases, yes.
Yeah.
Financial impact, yes. Any other damage? Yes. Mostly with monetary value. Likelihood? Generally for likelihood also, we generally take a kind of a scale, high, low, medium, critical, like the vulnerability one. So basically there can be certain risks unknown vulnerabilities. I spoke about this also, right? Known vulnerabilities and unknown vulnerabilities. No?
No.
So there are 4 kinds of vulnerabilities. Okay. The first kind is now let's say that there's a tool. Okay. So this tool scans for vulnerability. Okay, that's the point of the tool. And in certain cases, there is a known vulnerability, and the tool also identifies this vulnerability. These are more the very straightforward ones, right? And there are certain vulnerabilities that this bracket. I have a slide for this, so you will. I think I will cover this also in detail because this relates a lot to what we are trying to do with the pen testing task. So the point is, there are certain kinds of vulnerabilities that exist, but we don't know about it. We know, in the code base, the vulnerability is there, but the tool is not catching it. Okay? And there's another category. So for this particular case, there is the vulnerability, the tool is not catching. This is one. The tool will also catch it. We also know there is a vulnerability like this, and the tool also catches the vulnerabilities. This is tool doesn't catch, but there is the vulnerability, but we don't know it's there because the tool doesn't catch. What's the worst kind? Unknown unknowns. We don't know that there is a vulnerability like this. These are not materialized. I mean, as in the knowledge base, in any tool knowledge base, we don't know that there is a vulnerability like this. Now, example: if quantum comes, like it becomes mainstream, a lot of the software will be vulnerable, right? There will be a lot of breaking paths with quantum. So it's the exact same software. Okay, so we have the software. Let's say we have this product, and after a certain time, quantum comes into the picture, and the same product pathways becomes vulnerable. No change in the product. So tool doesn't know, and we also don't know. So it's not materialized yet. Based on the changing things, it will materialize later. There are certain cases where we predict that the tech stack or the technology trends will be like this, and we then develop the software targeting those aspects, right? So that is where we try to cater for unknown vulnerabilities that can materialize. Okay, now I'm going to get into the point. Now, these kinds of vulnerabilities, how would you place this? Now, this vulnerability type, we don't patch. So, examples are this and this, okay? Known and tool catchers. But the company doesn't use the tool and then it's there in the code base. Okay? How do you say high risk, low risk, medium risk?
High risk.
People who say high risk, no risk, low, medium risk. Now, I would say that this is high risk because very known vulnerability and any tool can identify that. So a hacker, lot of hacks happen like this. So they brute force in a lot. So generally, hackers don't go to a lot of effort in finding very niche vulnerabilities. They brute force across services, and basically they would, if they target 100, there would be 2 to 3 ones. So very obvious vulnerabilities are also not patched. So here, likelihood is very high, and impact also based on product can be high. What is this? So let's take that. This is finance product. Okay. So if this is a vulnerability in a unknown vulnerability in a finance product, what is the risk?
Medium risk.
Huh?
Medium risk.
Medium. High. Okay. High. Okay. So people who say high, how do you say? Okay. How do you reason that? Impact is of course high.
Somehow it's identified, it's become the most
Risky aspect. Okay.
Because likelihood is
extremely low. Now, this issue, let's say, millions of impact, but it's an unknown vulnerability. Even the hackers don't know that this exists yet. It's there in the code base. The vulnerability is there in the code base, but no one knows how to break in. Therefore, the impact is very low. Multiply an equation variable, if it's extremely low, what happens to the overall result? It becomes low, right? So overall thing becomes lower gain. So when we are looking at all of these things, again same thing. With each intelligence objective, have a look at what is the impact. Now this discussion is basically software vulnerability discussion. Now you have to convert this into the same thing here. Intelligence objectives. With each intelligence objective, what is the impact and what is the likelihood? So if you take the fifth one, okay, now take this, we'll take another example. Okay, this one. So what is the likelihood of this happening? Very likely. So public sources, if anybody can scrape, right? And they can code scan and all that they can do. What is the impact? Impact is basically the company's public facing information has been systematically collected by another third party or a competitor. That is bad. But that is not a very big impact based on. I mean, if there's something like the public, they have made a big mistake and had a data dump or something like that. That's a separate case. But in this case, I didn't see any. There were certain cases like the blog, but even with that scenario, I would not categorize that as a very high impact intelligence object. Now remember, there can be a question where I ask you to reason out why you selected or why you wrote a particular intelligence objective, and you have to reason out why you did that. One particular way that you can do is overall risk, which is a combination of the impact and the likelihood. Now, okay, so let's go to 5. Now, what's 5? determine the scope and risk of inadvertent exposure across all public facing assets that could materially aid targeting or compromise. So what this means is, for their public facing assets, all public facing assets, so now this takes out the human angle. So in our employees la employees also basically this one, vendors and partners leaking thing, that is totally out. So this is not a public facing asset. So for all the public facing assets, what is the scope and risk of all public facing assets that can materially aid, target and compromise? Materially aid meaning, for the public facing assets, කොහේ හරි තියෙනවද high risk එක, which means impact will be high and the likelihood also high, which could materialize by any target or compromise. දැන් මේක අපි සරල භාෂාවෙන් කිව්වොත්, data leak එක තැන්වල තේනවා, blog එකක් එනවා, ඒගොල්ලෝගේ internal company වල details සමාන discussions යනවා, posts යනවා. එතකොට මෙතන objective එක තමයි මේ වගේ මේ ගොඩක් leak and තියෙන context එකක අපේ public facing assets වල කිසියම් weakness එකක් තියෙනවද අනාගතයේදී හරි ලොකු hack එකක් සිදු වෙනවා. තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. Correct. It can be there, it cannot be there. That's the point of the project. That's why we are doing the project. Right? Is that high impact? Yes. If somebody breaks in and then takes out the information, it's very high impact. And then likelihood or public facing assets.
So does that mean when we are selecting the intelligent objective, we should consider the impact, right? So it's risk, right?
Yeah. Both in combination, yeah.
If it is a higher risk objective, that's the better place, right?
One way of reasoning out is high risk. How do you do that? It has to both be high impact and high likelihood. In all five, I would say the likelihood is high. All five, I would say likelihood is high. අර කිව්ව පහේම මම කියන්නේ likelihood high. Likelihood high already there. This is also likelihood high. Computers like ඒගොල්ලෝ physical uncut information ගන්නකොට likelihood high, is it done? Likelihood high. So if you only take likelihood, then you probably not arrive at answer. So let me look at the other side of the equation, that's impact. Now, let's take these three. So, like I would not say likelihood is the differentiating point. Again, it's the impact. Now, vulnerability, inadvertent exposure, if it's in the infrastructure layer, that's only one part of the public facing asset, right? Infrastructure aspect is only one aspect. When we look at the pen testing cycle, you will understand that a break can be in the application layer, in the business layer, business logic layer, in the infrastructure layer, and there would be another lot of contextual factors also contributing to this. Lot of business logic kind of issues. It's a combination of everything. So, මේ combination ඔක්කොම අර මම මේ කියන මෙතනට එනවා නේද? So what he said, and he's also correct, but there are sub parts of this question, and ideally what I would do is, this is the intelligence objective, these are separate questions. Okay? So this is where the question that I said, it's a trade-off problem. Don't make now. Sometimes making it specific is good. The aim of the intelligence project is technical team looking at patching locations. Of course, then that's too broad. These are good. But here, business managers දුන්නේ නැහැ objective මොකක්ද? එතකොට මේ risk එකෙන් බලලා highest risk එක තමයි. Any questions? all intelligence OSIN projects, this is the key decision. Our tools, the data extract, everything follows from this thing. If you get this wrong, I think the value of your report can be diminished.
ඒ වගේ වෙලාවකට එන ක්වෙස්චන් එකක් ආවම අපි අපිට ඔබ්ජෙක්ටිව් පාක් විතර තියෙනවා කියලා වගේ. ඒතකොට අපි හරියම එක ඩිසයිඩ් කරන්නේ මැනේජ්මන්ට් එකත් එක්ක ඩිස්කස් කරලා
ideally generally වෙන්නේ manage ඔයා option ටික ඉස්සෙල්ලා කියනවා. දැන් මේවා ගොඩක් ඒවල මැනේජ්මන්ට් එකේ එන්නේ නැහැ. හරියටම පින් පොයින්ට් කරලා මෙන්න මේක තමයි ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක වෙන්න ඕන කියලා. මොකද්ද හොයන්න ආවම මට ගොඩක් ක්ලයන්ට්ස් වගේ ආවම තියෙන ඔක්කොම දෙන්න. හරිද? එහෙම කරොත් අවුරුදු ගාණක් කරන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක. එතකොට ඔයගොල්ලෝ කියන්න ඕන within this budget and within the time space, these are the specific parts and objectives that we can practically achieve. Pick one or two, or pick a combination, or pick the highest priority one, and they have to agree, and that goes into the contract. Okay? මේක අර මේ OSIN වගේ courses වල ටිකක් overlooked ගොඩක් courses අර කෙලින්ම tool එකට බහිනවා. හැබැයි you would see that if you get this wrong, the tool is wrong. The everything that you report in the report also is not of a very high value. Got it? Any questions? Right. Now, so this is I discussed this. Now these are the second question. Now, okay, good point here. So, I think in the data protocol sheet, the next point was data source, right? So, now these are the public-facing assets. Can you see? If it's just infrastructure that we had as the intelligence objective, this aspect will totally be out. Okay.
also.
This will be in. This will be in. I think this will also be in. But I think in this particular project, if you see the description, there were key locations, key points where the document metadata was what caused the sensitive data leak. Okay, I mean, difference is clear. When cases, there can be massive difference between the layer, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's the software layer, whether it's the context, whether it's a business logic layer, whether it's the documentation, PDFs, and all that. So, based on the now, how do you arrive at this list? I mean, it's basically from the intelligence objective. Public, what are the public-facing assets? Okay. So when you say public-facing asset, a document that you publish in your website is again a public-facing asset. Correct? Yeah. So these are what I would choose, and the intelligence questions. These are what I would have. Now these questions will make you aware of anything. One of the rules make you aware of technical. This is the software layer and the infrastructure layer. Many questions. So it doesn't need to be like technical like this, but any question that enables you to answer the intelligence objective you can have. But remember, for the project, the key thing is that the set of answers to your intelligence questions collectively has to achieve the objective, or part of the objective, the overall objective. If you don't do that, there's no point of breaking it down in terms of questions, right? So might as well not have questions then. So make sure that when you're doing that, you're looking at answers for the questions collectively achieving the aim. Okay. Next one is scope. So one data point for the data protocol sheet, focus areas and outer scope and outer scope. Okay, so I clearly said these are outer scope. Anyway, social engineering and all that becomes outer source. It's not people are not a public facing asset. We don't generally consider them public facing asset in that technical definition. So any social engineering is out, intrusive testing is out. That's not always in, and credential use is also in this particular case I've taken as out. You can of course argue towards taking it in also if you want.
Encrypted data also we can also.
Yeah, because of that's it. If you have breaking if it's encrypted data and you want to take those encrypted data, you have to do breaking. Now basically, if it's a public facing asset and if the data is encrypted, a valid finding for this kind of project can be the hosted location has these vulnerabilities that expose the encrypted data towards attacks. But in the project itself, you are not going to break into the encrypted data source and then take out the data and then show that okay, this is the data that you have. That is of course active attacking. Scope of the project. If you're doing pen testing and the client has specifically said that you can attack and find us the vulnerabilities, then yes. But in this project, there was nothing like that, right? So there can be cases where you have to break in, but this project is not one of those.
And data available with authorization that also.
Sorry?
Data available public and with authorization that also.
Yeah, exactly. So public facing assets. So basically, we clearly said public facing assets also no.
Yeah.
So availability has to be from a public facing asset, right? Okay. So data sources. So I mentioned this. I have this as the answer like I published this. And tools. We'll discuss tools today in detail. And then inclusion exclusion criteria, have a look. So there were certain parts in the case where the data was anyway old. So for the particular intelligence objective, some of these data would not have been relevant. Now example is there was some data leaked from your product or the application ecosystem some 2 years ago. Now that application itself is not there. Report analyze there's no point of that, right? We want the current infrastructure, current software stack, current ecosystem. What are the entry points and what are the weak areas, right? So there's no point of having something like data older than 36 months. So encrypted information, see also encrypted information without corroboration. So private and personal information. So all of these are taken as excluded and these are included. This is very important in actual projects also because you would see that the easier part in most of the project is the data capturing and the data scraping. Data collection part එක තමයි ඇත්තටම මේ project වල lazy වෙන්නේ. ඔක tool එක ගන්න පුළුවන් install කරා target එක දුන්නා data ඇත්ත. Then becomes the hard part. Okay, what data is relevant to us? And there you have to have clearly specified inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria where you arrive at the subset of those data that is relevant to you. Otherwise you will take a whole lot of time to analyze all those data and then report it, right? Right, okay, so any questions on this? So this is a classic OSINT case where you have to have your have the ability to go in the correct direction other than going in other ones. Any questions?
One objective, so with the same risk criteria. So how we
Okay, good question. Now there can be certain intelligence objectives you qualitative. These are qualitative assessments. No? Based on both, qualitatively you arrive at the same kind of same risk. What you do in this particular case. Any answers?
Build decisions with the customers.
Sorry.
Talk with the customers.
Exactly. So in that particular case, we cannot make the judgment call there, right? Because context now then that is the case where context will play a larger role. technically and from the data, from the path and from the impact and risk, your assessment arrives at the same value for two objectives. Now, of course, it is the now how are we going to produce the report? What is the end outcome? We're going to provide actionable intelligence to the management, right? To the client. Therefore, this is a classic case where you present the two options to the client and say, okay, what do you want? If they say both, then they have to then have resources at the time and the funds to support both of these things, right? So there can be questions like this. That is the answer for that. Client has to choose. Good question. Okay, so now we'll look at the traditionally covered content in OSINT, and that is the tools, right? So when we say tools in this subject, what is a tool? So here tool can be any of these things. So here, if you write a script to extract data, like a Python script into end, just one script, and it does the whole data extraction, that is your tool. Can be a tool, right? So traditional tool is the application app that you download. It can be web, it can be mobile. So that's again another kind of tool. A software suite is a bit another step beyond this. So it generally has more functionalities. We'll have a look at these things. So basically, as a software suite is it encapsulates a lot of functions. It's not so a tool. I would say single focus. Like Nmap is code scan, doesn't do anything else, right? So if you take something like Metasploit, or if you take something like Burpsuit would be example. I showed you no, right? So we'll talk about this thing. Burpsuit, that's a dynamic security testing application widely used. That is software suite. It's not single purpose. You can do multiple things with that, right? So a website can also be a tool. So you use some particular tool and you use some web service. You don't install anything. You use that example data acquisition. That can be a tool, right? So any of these things. So when we say tool here, any of these things is valid. Okay. Any resource or utility that aids in the gathering and analysis. Okay, now what we do is, what I want to do first is, I want to directly get into hands-on activity, and before that, now tooling here is, we can do tooling, for the whole course we can do tooling, like one lecture, one tool, right? You can do that through lecture, okay, but there's no point of that. All of these things, you can very easily learn it. You use ChatGPT and ask, okay, how to use this tool, it will do a better job than me. But the important thing is what tool to use in what context. That is the important part, and we'll use that. We'll see that with the actual case that I did with a pen testing project. Okay, not pen testing. Yes. Okay. So now, if you take a look at this tool, what I do first is I'll give you the tool categories, and I'll then give an example. Okay. This is now we will revisit a lot of these things in other lectures. But here, what I want to give with the scope we make. Yes, coverage is without going deep into the tool. Okay, so what is the first one? Now, this is basically any OSINT project. You generally start with search engine. So with something like Google with docking or what you know what docking is?
Searching address.
Yeah. So I suppose you know this. You with Google search, do you know how to only get PDFs as outputs? If you don't know, that's docking basically. So search term file type $PDF, you only get the PDF. That's just what is very simple search command. You can make this very comprehensive in which period, from which source. So this particular case, in particular word is in the title, this is not. So there's a whole lot of things that you can try out. So these are called Google Docs, docking. So you can just search and you get a whole lot of options on how to do this. And this is like old school things. I mean, you would see that, okay, this is very basic, but extremely useful. Okay, so identity search tools. So this is basically sets of applications that tie to your PID, personally identifiable data. Now, one particular example, I just read on this. The hack happened starting from the phone number, identifying particular phone number with the name, and from the name, then the address. From the address, so that was how it happened. Started. So the particular tool, which is a phone number. I can't remember the tool name, but basically, when you give it to a phone number, if anywhere in the internet, if that particular phone number is connected with a name, it extracts you that name. So this is identity search. Right? There's specific. We'll cover these things. And the other one is domain and network. So I think you're familiar with this, right? Domain and network analysis tools. These are most definitely because you had the network subject also, right? Network related subject was there, right?
Last.
Network design or something like?
Yeah, last.
What is the subject?
Network protocol.
Network protocols and all that, right? So basically, any open source information or any network information that is public facing, and then if you extract that, it falls into this particular layer. So this is not only the typical ports. We had a good discussion last week also, right? Whether Nmap is OSINT or not. And then what's the other side? DNS, any domain related information. So DNS information that also would be in this particular category. Okay. So fourth one, web archives and historical data. So these are internet archives. Example, web application, right? So web information, web archives, technical name is it's an archive. It's a stored snapshot or stored information of the data source. This can be across time. Okay, Wayback Machine across time website snapshot. Right? Internet of Things. So this is one tool that we will use in the lab session. Shodan, do you know this tool? Shodan? Yes. So Shodan is basically a tool, a software that provides you with the information of devices that are connected to the internet. Basically, if you want to see a particular server, and if that particular server is hosting any publicly accessible like a website or something like that, you can easily use Shodan to find those. How make a common attack related? Very classic case of attacks. Mami kiwalde godak attacks wala මේක තමයි වෙන්නේ. කියන්න බෑ. Correct. Link. That is link analysis. We have a whole different separate lecture for that. This is link analysis. Relationships nodes basically. We are going to use graph theory, things like that. But measure complex. Any answers? Okay.
Is that connected to network only? We can.
Yeah. Attack make a very popular attack part.
Attack surface.
Attack surface එක ඔව්. හා? ඔව් කොහොම හරි. attack මේක තමයි කිසියම් product එකක vendor patch එකක් දානවා release කරනවා. නෝන් එතකොට හැමෝම දන්නවා හරි මෙන්න මේක vulnerability එකක් තියෙනවා vendor patch එක release කරලා තියෙන මේ particular server එකට.
patch එක දාගත්තා.
දැන් මොකද කරන්නේ? We use Shodan to find the exact server with publicly accessible services, and then what do? We see whether that is patched or not.
Not applied patch.
Right? And that is this kind of attack is very frequent. මේක තර කවුද මේ attack එක start කරේ? It's a vendor itself. vendor ම ඒක තමයි ඔය කියන්නේ ඔය ගොඩක් ඒවකට patches ආපු ගමන් මේක නොදැම්මම භයානකයි කියන්නේ මොකද එතකොට හැකර්ස්ලත් මෙහෙම එකක් තියෙන කියලා දැනගන්නේ ඒ වෙලාවට.
Unknown vulnerability, right? Other than the vendors not showing, right?
No, it's a known vulnerability because there's a
No.
patches given. Until that point, of course, nobody knew. Then the vendor got to know, somebody reported or vendor got to know, vendor released the patch. And if you patched it, then no problem. If you didn't, then hackers would definitely lazy to children a particular server and a particular infrastructure setting scan kara. So this tool scans for any internet connected devices, can be servers, can be also webcams. So any internet connected device, IoT. So and you have a look, you extract those and then you see manually whether those are patched or not. Brute force karna. Or vulnerability patch karna. There are, if you take 100, there would most definitely be 2 or 3 who have not patched it. Okay, so classic case of OSINT, starting point of vendor. Okay, so vulnerability analysis, now this okay, geospatial analysis, this is Google Earth and Google Maps. So we'll have we'll have a lab session for this, where a bit more towards image processing tools and scripts you will use for the geospatial analysis. Why is this OSINT? Open source there. Map is open source, right? Anybody can go and see the location, the house and all. Some of the content is blurred, but fair bit of information you can take, right? Vulnerability analysis. So this is basically now tricky thing. If you scan for vulnerabilities and it gives out a list of vulnerabilities, that is, I would say, a little bit of a step from OSINT. But still technically අපි දු ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක අපි vulnerabilities මොනවද තියෙන කියලා බලනවා නම් අර අපි එදා කතා කරපු this goes back to the discussion that we had in the previous session. What is your intention? If your intention is towards attacking and that is what you're doing vulnerability scanning, then maybe that definition of OSINT is a bit that effort is a bit towards attack mode. But say for instance it's your own company and you're looking at vulnerability patching and something like that, maybe you can classify that with the OSINT. Now that is gray, again gray area can fall into either. Okay, but for the sake of completion, I'm placing it here, vulnerability analysis tools as an open source OSINT tool type. Okay, all-in-one platforms is Multigo. So Multigo is all-in-one because it's modularized. You can make functions you can bring into Multigo from add-ons. We'll have a lab session especially for Multigo where you are going to combine a lot of capabilities of other tools into Multigo, so that how is this useful? To form the pipeline, tool pipeline. If you have a tool pipeline, the requirement of the project is that you have to have a tool pipeline where the output of one tool has to be fed to another tool, so that you have to interface or manually enter, right? So rather than manually entering, you can create the tool pipeline. So that kind of thing very easy you can do in these kinds of all-in-one platforms. Multigo is one of the highest used. Okay. Point 9, data extraction and web scraping. So this is again a very popular one. So basically this is scraping information. Now basically now you know web crawlers, right? So web crawler information. Now web crawlers also scrape information, but in this particular case web scrapers actually try to scrape the information and then store it. Now web crawlers would be technically looking at certain other things like data points. It will look at data, what is the data, what is the particular information that is relevant to the algorithm. Now the LLMs or web crawlers will get information train. Otherwise where does it get information? The knowledge from these web crawlers getting up information with train. So web scraping is another step beyond. Scrapes information, all the information out of it, out of the website, and then finally overlooked data organization. Like I said, sometimes it's very easy to scrape the information, but the actual challenge starts after that. මේ gigabyte ගණන් data මේ tools වල ගන්නත් use කරලා gigabyte ගණන් we extract. Now how do you go from that point towards answering the information, answering the intelligence questions and objectives? In that particular case, how you organize the data also becomes critically important, and you can't do it manually. If you want, you can, like Google Sheets, Excel, but it will be good if you use a tool. Like no, these are not always in tools, these are not taking tools. Right? Okay, this is the tool scope in terms of specific functionalities. මේ ටික විතරද මේ tools තියෙන්නේ. මේ අපගහර වෙන අපගස් තියෙනවා ඕනතරම් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි generally I would say 90% of OSINT projects මේ තියෙන ටිකෙන් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. මේ categories ටිකෙන් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. Okay, now, okay, make it the key knowledge that a OSINT practitioner would have in this project, I would say, is this decision. What is the signal? What is the noise? Signal versus noise. A technical term දෙක වෙනස දන්නවනේ. කිසියම් දෙයක signal එක කියන්නේ what we want. That is the signal, that is the actual information that we want. Anything other than that is noise. Right? OSINT project also. Now, classic case. Okay, what is the signal? What is the noise? And differentiating that is the challenging part. Okay, so OSINT tools. So, okay. Jumping to the next one. So remember, so OSINT tools, I'll give you the summary. Signal versus noise. I hope the difference is clear. Some tools for the case study, the mini case. So not some tools, just one tool, right? The archive, web internet archive tool. Now again, one of the key things, no information gathering methodology is 100% complete. Now even in that case, it will be a guess, right? The moment or a tool like atara tibba kiyala, you can't 100% say no. But that is the starting point. Then what you have to do is you can dig a little bit deeper into, okay, what are the tools that they have in the previous version and that are not there here. There has to be reason, no? They have to take shipment company tracking service can be a key information, right? Shipment tracking central to their business. Now they are doing phone, they email and phone. So that is of course a key thing. And then you have to investigate. The next layer is then you look at the links and the showroom and all that, and then what is the target? Is it dinlagalogistics.com? No, it's a particular tool, the tracking tool, and then you can go another step beyond that, right? Starting point I mentioned that. Now, what we'll do now is we will, okay. So this is the link analysis and entity relationships. What I'll do now is. Yeah, I'll have a start, but the link analysis part I stopped there because that is another lecture. Okay, so what we do is there are certain concepts related to tool use in this space. I'll cover the concepts, but tool install karanne, I don't think that is relevant for masters class. But the fundamental concept behind the tool I'll cover in the lecture. Labs will get some hands-on work with the tool. Okay. Okay. So first one, data collection techniques. So I think I mentioned this. Yeah, I think I mentioned this before also. We have two types of data collection techniques. One is passive harvesting, and then the other one is active harvesting. So passive harvesting generically, so you're not interacting with the target, but active harvesting you're directly collecting information on the target. Okay, is your method. So what did you do for this particular project? Mini case, was it active harvesting or passive? Passive? Or you're saying active? Depends. Not depends. maybe you have to reason out your answer. Technically, Wayback Machine is passive. You are not interacting with the target. No, target take a log technically, correct answer is passive. Active. It is active only if you interact with the target. If you interact with Wayback Machine, you are interacting with Wayback Machine, not Lanka 96 servers, right? The previous snapshot, it is not in Lanka 96 servers, they are cleaned out. This is Wayback Machine. So, sorry, Wayback Machine servers, snapshots, and you are not interacting with the target. So, that is passive. Okay. So, depends the egg, okay, passive. And then, okay, two types. And then the next one is generally, so what we'll do now is we'll look at passive data collection and then we look at active data collection. So, generally when we say passive data collection, there's a technical term also. We are trying to build digital footprint of a target. Okay, when we say we are trying to build a digital footprint of a target, we are looking at passive data collection. So, what are these things? So, who is it as simple as a command? This is a command line tool. You can get the who is. You know who is, right? You can have the domain and then do a who is, and it will show the domain. Is it active or passive? It is passive, right? And now what you are trying to do is digital profile without trying to interact with the target, right? So who is this one? DNS enumeration, again passive, right? So queries, DNS service information, IP address and all that you can directly get from even without interacting with the target. Reverse DNS lookups, again on the side. So this is IP address to do anything. So when you enter this in the your web browser, it's other side, right? So you have the name and it goes with the IP address. You can do the reverse also. Right? Subdomain enumeration, metadata analysis. So this is extracting metadata from files. Banner grabbing. I think I'll use banner grabbing for one of our lab sessions, so that you will know what exactly that is. So these are some other ones. So SSL certificate inspection. Okay. So basically, this is you can gather some information from the SSL certificate itself if you have not done the proper hide, right? So that is one technique. And then PTR, pointer registrations, record lookups, geo IP lookups, zone transfer. So a lot of these things you will see that it's in the network layer, right? So autonomous system lookups, email address enumeration, web content discovery. So just listing these out again, like I said. කවදාවත් මේ ලියන tools ඔක්කොම මොනවද කියලා මතක තියාගන්නවත් for a tool what are the whole set of functionalities being able, that's not possible. Why? New tools coming every day, every month there's a new thing going on, and for let's take that we cover a tool like the functionalities we cover comprehensively and you are familiar with the functionalities. Next month you go and see they've upgraded and the functionality is not there, right? So the tool specific stuff is like on the go, you search and see what's there. I also certain functionalities I'm also not aware, and maybe I know the previous version of okay, so I'll quickly now again, having said that, we have to cover what that tool does. So I'll quickly go through this, but this is just for your information kind of content. So who is queries? This is now the first one. Basically, this is providing the registered owner of the domain, and then this can include the name, contact information, things like that. And then one tool is harvester. The harvester. This is a command line utility, and remember I told this tool, this is your next lab session, recon.ng. That is also software suite where you can integrate a lot of these modules into that tool, right? So recon.ng, your next tool, we'll try to bring in harvester into recon.ng and do something with it. Yeah, so this is harvester. What is this? Who is queries? Basically, thinking who is filling in information it gives here. And then this is DNS enumeration. This is focusing on the technical details like the infrastructure of the domain, like IP address, subdomains, mail server. This is the NS records, MS records, text records, and all that. Everything related to the DNS. Okay. Use these tools. DNS. So these are two names. These two. So that's one. Reverse DNS lookups. For these two tasks, I'll get back to you in the next session because that date for this we'll do this in the next session. And metadata analysis. This is exactly something that we've already talked about. What is metadata? So it's data about data, right? So provide like file ownership, who created the file, who modified the file, device information, the document history, a lot of these things, and ECS sources, PDFs, right? PDFs, membership, and all that. So the tools are these. So this is EXIF tool, and this is another tool. You can look at these. These are specifically for metadata extraction. Okay, data, passive information sources, metadata, right? Yeah, I think this is purely for documents and PDFs, Excel files, and all that. You can extract the metadata using this tool. So banner grabbing. So this is basically banners and open ports, and the information that you typically find in a banner of a data packet. So you can do using banner grabbing. So what are the key some of the information? Software versions, OS systems, config details. You can find this basically from banner grabbing. And why is this important? Another same case that I mentioned before. Can you see software versions? That in itself is sufficient for a hack. So there's a known vulnerability in an older version, and because of that, the provider has upgraded. So it's just a matter of finding, okay, what are the targets that are running the previous software version of that product, right? In banner grabbing, you can very easily find these things. So known vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, attack surface analysis. A lot of these things you can start with banner grabbing. Okay, so these are the tools. So basically netcat, nmap, so widely used network in So telemetry is another tool. This is also command line tool okay, I just used it now yesterday also. So to check whether the ports are open. So yesterday I used the website was not responding. Basically whether to see if the port is open or not. Right. So telnet you can do that. So SSL certificate, I just mentioned this, and then these are the tools. OpenSSL, so syslice, and then Shodan. Okay, Shodan you can do now. Purpose of Shodan is finding information of internet connected devices. So what is one type of information? This SSL certificate information inspection is something that you can do with Shodan. Okay, so we'll anyway do a lab session with Shodan, and so PTR. I think this is this DNS lookup and DNS lookup. These are some tools that you can. So this is actually mapping the infrastructure basically. So okay, so GeoIP lookups. Remember I told that GeoInt is one type of OSINT. So these GeoIP lookup tools, GeoIP, MaxMind, Multigo, all of these can be used for finding geographical locations. What is the use case here? For particular server, what's the physical location? So use case useful for tracking down physical origins of a network or server, right? So got to do with maps. So we'll have a look at that in a separate session again. Zone transfer, again, these are DNS information. Yeah, this. Okay, so this is again important thing, email address enumeration. A lot of cases, lot of hacks have this as the starting point. So they only have the email, the data leak has the email and username. So this is basically trying to associate that email with the correct target. So this is email ID enumeration. So these are three tools that you can use for this: the harvester, recon.htm, hunt.io. So all email address enumeration tools. So what can you do with this? So the first thing that I did was I add my own email and see, okay, what is there, and whether the tool can map my email with my name, right? So that's something that you can also do. So web content discovery, this is basically discovering hidden directories of files of a server. So basically, web server, you have the public facing assets, and there might be, if you have not configured it properly, other sources that the public was not supposed to access. So this is where if you're doing web content now, for example, one case of this is the URL. So in certain cases, one particular hack, so the CSV file name, you incremented the name by 1 and it showed another CSV file with information that was not supposed to be there.
And without file name also directory showing sometimes showing.
That also you can, it's possible. So without file name also, if you want to get the list of publicly accessible things, you can also do that. Manual මේක තමයි අර එක එක add කර බලන combinations දාලා basically for various file names so that you can access these things. So now tools for doing this is this, what we did last time. So basically what he said, you can do this and this. Otherwise you have to manually draw. Right, so I think active recon I will start in the next session. Now basically what would happen is next session I would need to do the lab session also. So I'm trying to do the lab session, of course it has to be physical, and there's only one time slot remaining, right? So that for you it will be full day